Oh, hopefully this is coming through. YouTube's telling me this stream is not receiving enough signal. Computer's being blocky too. Okay, hopefully this is working. Let me know in the chat if there's any issues. Good. I think it looks like the video is going to be glitchy, but if the audio is fine, that's the main thing. Okay. I'm going to I've got some travel plans coming up, so I'm going to be missing a few of these live streams. Then tomorrow I'm leaving for Poland to teach a retreat there, and in July I'm going to Missouri. So the next live stream after this one will be Thursday, I think it's the 11th of June. Yeah, the 11th, Thursday, the 11th of June. So I'll be missing the next two. Okay, so let's get going. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Okay, so 2 weeks ago I talked about consciousness and AI, and last week I talked about some issues around defining consciousness. So I'll finish off this short kind of sequence by talking today about the different levels of consciousness. And there are different ways of approaching that. To begin with, let's look at the way it's defined in the Abhidhamma. Chitta in the Abhidhamma is analyzed into 89 types of chitta, and they're cross-referenced in a couple of ways. There's those chittas that are kusala or skillful, those that are unskillful, those that are functional. Cutting across that division, there are 4 levels or bhumis of consciousness. And that's what I want to focus on. These are the kama bhumi, the sense level, the rupa bhumi, the level of form, arupa bhumi, the formless, and nibbana as the 4th. Nibbana, of course, is outside of the other 3. All the other 3 are conditioned and part of the samsaric process. The kama vichara, or kama bhumi, sense desire, or sense, probably better would be to say sense experience realm, is the realm, the default level of consciousness for human beings. And for all of these, for the first 3 of these levels, there's 2 aspects. There's aspect as a state of mind and aspect as a state of being, which then brings in the various levels of the cosmology. The kama bhumi, as a state of being, is the widest and the most diverse, and has the highest number of beings. It includes all the beings from the hell realms up to the highest sensual Deva realms. So it includes also humans and animals. The defining characteristic of this level is that the beings residing here are primarily relate to the world through their physical senses: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and that's how they get their information. That's where their the basis of their desires and fears are found. And most of our thought forms are based on sensory objects. So we're very much tied into the sensory apparatus. So as a level of consciousness, it's the ordinary or default level of consciousness. But it exists on quite a spectrum. It isn't all one of a piece. As human beings, every day, every 24-hour cycle, we experience at least 3 totally different modes of consciousness. There's a waking consciousness, a dream, sleep, and deep sleep, which are all quite different from one another. Deep sleep is consciousness at the bare minimum, consciousness, you could say, idling in neutral. It is a continual stream of bhavanga. Now, bhavanga is another term from Abhidhamma, and it refers to the minimal state of consciousness. And even during the course of the day, we're constantly relapsing into bhavanga. If we're practicing mindfulness, if we're trying to awaken, then we should be trying to minimize the reversions into bhavanga. But the ordinary day-to-day consciousness of human beings, they're constantly falling in and out of bhavanga. The mind in rising out of bhavanga takes an object. It vibrates with the presence of an object, emerges from bhavanga and takes that object. In the Vipassana meditation, for example, if it's in an advanced state, then the meditator spends little or no time in bhavanga, but is continually aware of each object as it arises. All these modes of consciousness is quite interesting to contemplate. What's basically happening in dreams is that the faculty of perception, sanya, is let loose. Let's say it's not tightly bound to the sense organs as it is in waking consciousness. So instead of perceiving objects derived from sense consciousness, it manufactures objects based on fragments of memory or imagination, and simulates an entire world that seems quite realistic. When you're in the dream state, generally you don't know it. This seems like a real existence to you. And basically, when we're awake, we're still, in a sense, dreaming. Sanya is still operating to create a simulation, but it's tightly bound by the input of the senses. So it creates a simulation that is a good representation of the external universe. Good enough to allow us to function. The next Abhidhamma level of consciousness is the Rupa Bhumi, the realm of form, and it's named this to distinguish it from the Arupa Bhumi, the formless. Oh. In terms of existence or beings, it represents the Brahma deities. So this is the default mode of consciousness for Brahmas. It's a Rupa Bhumi. The Brahmas have only the functional senses of sight and hearing, and they don't have sense desire as such. So they still seek pleasure in meditative bliss. So for us as humans, on our level, although as I said, Kama Bhumi is our default mode of consciousness, we can experience a Rupa Bhumi in jhana. And jhana is the equivalent in the human existence of Brahma consciousness. So it's a quantum step from sense desire realm of existence. That's why the hindrance of sense desire is such an obstacle to jhana, because as long as you're working through the senses, then this blocks you from transcending the sense desire realm. When we say the hindrance of sense desire, it doesn't just mean obvious gross desires like for sex and food. It's also the subtler forms when the mind is taking interest or kind of diversion through the sense objects. The seclusion from the senses is key to experiencing jhana, because it is a transcendence of that whole level. This is really one of the prime benefits of having some experience of jhana, because what you've done when you're sitting in jhana is you've temporarily shed an entire level of samsara, and a very noisy, demanding, troublesome layer it is. The Rupa Bhumi is not a state of perfection. There's still underlying forms of tanha, the desire to be, is still present in the mind of a Brahma or in the mind of someone in jhana. That has not been transcended. So this is also tells us that at our ordinary level of consciousness, defilements related to the senses are the noisiest and demand the most attention, but they're relatively superficial. Once they're suppressed or eliminated, there still remains deeper levels of desire, the desire to be, the desire, its negative form, the desire not to be. And these are deeper and more fundamental and harder to transcend than sense desire. But as long as sense desire is operative, you don't really notice those, because sense desire is so noisy and demanding of attention. So the mind in the Rupa Bhumi, whether it's in meditation or in existence as a Brahma, is free of the hindrances of sense desire and ill will. It's greatly purified relative to the mind in the Kama Bhumi, but it still has it's still not liberated. No? The third level is the Arupa Bhumi, which is the realm of the formless, where there's a dissociation not just from the senses but from the body as a whole. Existence in this form is in the Arupa level means that the being is mind only, without any physical substructure. So they're also called the four khandha beings, because they don't have the khandha of rupa, of body. This is even more refined level of consciousness than the Rupa Bhumi. And there are levels here, so there's levels also in the Rupa Bhumi, but in the Arupa Bhumi there's recognized four levels. The level of boundless space, boundless consciousness, nothingness, and neither perception or non-perception. We could say that the level of neither perception or non-perception is the subtlest and most refined form of conditioned existence. It's samsara brought down to a bare minimum. It's still not liberated. It's only nibbana that represents a true liberation, because the mind and consciousness in nibbana is very hard to define. One of the passages that's spoken by the Buddha in a couple of places talks about a liberated mind as being luminous, boundless, and without footing, meaning not having or the literal translation would be finds no footing, meaning it's not dependent on anything. So it's liberated. It's not based on anything else. So those are that's the basic structure of levels of consciousness as discussed in the Abhidhamma. There are some variations and refinements of that in later Buddhism. In Yogacara Buddhism, we have, for example, the concept of alaya vijnana, or the foundation consciousness, which is kind of an underlying consciousness that stores the seeds of karma. So basically, a lot of what we are doing in our practice, we're trying to elevate our level of consciousness, and transcend the limitations of the subjugation to the senses, first of all. And this is really the important aspect of jhana, is that you're now temporarily experiencing a mind that's liberated from the senses, so liberated from a big part of samsaric conditioned existence. And this gives you the benefit, amongst other things. Well, one of the benefits that the Buddha said is a pleasant abiding here and now. The blameless pleasure divorced from the senses. But another benefit is that having experienced that, you come back from it with a new understanding of the sense desire level, because now you've been outside it and you can see things in a new light. You can understand things better. A metaphor would be, if you're living in a village or a town at the bottom of a big hill or a mountain, and you've lived in this town for years and you've wandered the streets, you think you know it really well. But until you've climbed up on the top of the mountain and looked down at the town from above, you don't have a full understanding of it. And then you can see the whole thing perfectly, because you're seeing it from the outside. And this has an analogy with the mind of a Brahma, who the Brahma gods are said to be able to contemplate thousands of world systems, just as a man might hold sesame seeds in the palm of his hand. They're above and transcended that whole level. Even within the sense desire realm, there's a whole spectrum. It's not just a black and white picture. There's a shading. There's a gradation. And we see this in the progression through the heavenly levels. That the sense desires become more subtle and refined as one goes up. And we can see this in ordinary human existence, that for any kind of sense desire, whether it's food or music or whatever it might be, and there's a whole spectrum of coarse level sense experience and more refined subtle levels, until at the very end, at the peak, very subtle sense experiences are more easily transcended to emerge into the realm of form. They're not as binding on the mind. There's also the negative aspect of sense experiences, pain and fear. And just as we have a whole spectrum going upwards, we have a whole spectrum going downwards, all the way down to the lower realms, to the very bottom is a witchy hell. The name of witchy means continuous or non-intermittent. There's no break in a witchy hell. It's just continual torture. And in the human level, we're sort of in the middle. And this works to our benefit for seeking liberation, because we have enough suffering in the human realm to see that there's an issue. Whereas the Devas live in such pleasure, they don't feel any urgency. But we also have enough ease and contentment, in an ordinary human life. There's a mix of pleasure and pain and peace and strife, and we can find enough space to practice and to work towards liberation. So I'll leave it at that, and see, I can see there's chat is kind of busy. I'll go on the chat and see what I can deal with here. Does consciousness during sleep go somewhere? Can it still be considered located in the body? Some other explanation. If it goes out, how does the body rope it back like a fetter? That's a good question. It's an interesting one, and I think most of the time it just stays in the body. But there is experiences of out-of-body experiences, what's sometimes called astral travel, where the mind can actually exit the body in an astral form. And this is another kind of layers of being. So there's the physical form, and then there's a more subtle astral form. It's mentioned in the Visuddhimagga as one of the psychic powers, is the mind-made body that emerges from the body and can travel around. And how does it rope it back? there still remains a kind of a psychic connection, and it will return to the body. I've learned from your other talks that Brahmas have sight and hearing. It is a different kind of sense from ours, since they're not in the Kamabhumi. Well, their sight at least is very keen. I mean, they can observe things in the lower realms that are going on from a tremendous distance. I take that these senses for them are functional, so they can. And we're speaking about first level Brahmas that still have thought formation, so they still have some activity, and they need to be able to navigate in the world. So they need sense, sight, and hearing, but they don't eat food, so they have no reason for taste. And their bodies are a very subtle form, so they don't really have even the sense of touch. But they don't have desire for even pleasant visual objects. They're just, it's a functional sense for them. If a two-part question, if a person has a cat and becomes anagami, would he still take care of the cat out of compassion or find it a new home? I don't know. I don't see why he wouldn't be able to take care of the cat. Would having a cat prevent one from attaining to anagami if we should be feeding the senses, indulging in sense pleasure, playing with the cat, petting it, admiring how adorable it is? Yeah, I think that becoming an anagami would probably change your relationship with the cat entirely. There is certainly, in keeping pets, there is certainly an amount of sense desire involved in that. It can be more or less. What is the consciousness level or part of the mind that panics when you enter jhana and fears death and insanity and pushes you to stop meditating? That's a hindrance of ill will and also of uncertainty. There's a lack of it really is. It's a lack of. I think underlying that is a lack of faith, of saddha. You have to have faith in the process that it's not going to do you any harm. You're going to be fine, and just keep going. Subjugation to the senses is not really the problem for me. It's more about ignorance and how to practice well in unfavorable conditions. Thoughts. There's a kind of a twofold approach here. One is that to do everything within your means and ability to find or make for yourself favorable conditions. There's no reason to impose unfavorable conditions on yourself. But then the second part of that is there's going to be a certain amount of discomfort or unfavorability in any condition. Nothing is perfect in this world. And so you have to try and find an inner strength to be able to practice in less than perfect conditions. Is reaching jhana similar to discovering a new library full of higher information? It's not really like that. It's not like a bunch of new information. It's like a new perspective, a new way of seeing things that you already know. There could be senses beyond the six accessible to other beings. Animal or deva. Well, the six senses, the system of the six senses really refers to the human level. And we know that in the animal kingdom there are various different sensory apparatus. You mentioned electrical sense of a shark. I've also read that platypus has electrical sensors in its flat duck bill. That's the reason that it evolved that. And buries that in the mud and sense little animals hiding in the mud. There's a magnetic sense that some animals migrate with. They can sense the magnetic field of the earth, birds and some other migratory animals. Is a mind-made body similar to a body one can create with imagination? No, it's not. It's not like that. It's not like you imagine it. It's like the mind generates a kind of a copy. They call it, in some traditions they call it the astral body. It's kind of a shadow body that has all the features of the real physical body. Is dreaming a different experience from enlightened people? That's an interesting question, because I'm not sure. There's some indication that arahants don't dream, but that's not agreed on. There's a different schools of thought on that. If one has a lesser degree of enlightenment, like an anagami would not. I would think logically, with what we know about the characteristics of an anagami and what defilements remain and what are transcended, that there would be no sensual dreams. Is giving up drinking as a result from practicing the Dharma a sure sign of stream entry? No, that's not. That's not a sure sign. I mean, it's a good thing to do, to be encouraged, but stream entry is a lot more than just abstention from alcohol. Okay. Okay, so we'll leave it there, and we've got one more. Maybe I'll just take this last question. When I enter first jhana, I'm drawn to investigate what is there based on many books I've read. Being new to absorption, will it pass when sukha or second jhana begins? Yeah, there won't be any in second jhana. You won't be doing any investigation or contemplation. You said something interesting last week about the possibility of past, present, and future existing at the same time. Does this mean that future is 100% predetermined? I think that's another kind of a big question. I don't think it means predetermined in the way that Western philosophy thinks of predestination. It's not like it's fixed. I see it more as kind of a probabilistic, that it doesn't become fixed as a determinate actual event until it occurs in the present. But in the future, there's a range of possibilities. But there's limitations to that. It's probabilistic. You can think, certain things are very likely to happen. Certain things are almost certain to happen. Other things are possible but unlikely. Okay, and as I said, I'll see you in a couple of weeks' time on the Thursday, June the 11th, and enjoy your spring.